You might think that when someone truly cares about you, they'll naturally want to be closer, that love should bring people together, make them open, communicative, and present. But human psychology doesn't always follow that logic, especially for someone who's learned, often the hard way, that attachment can become a liability. When she starts feeling real emotions for you, when she begins to genuinely care, something strange can happen. Instead of drawing nearer, she starts pulling back. Not because her feelings are fading, but because they're growing stronger. And that strength terrifies her. Emotional dependence is one of the most vulnerable states a person can experience. The moment she begins to rely on your presence for emotional comfort, stability, or security, her internal alarm bells start ringing, because now there's something to lose. Now the stakes are real. And if she's someone who's been hurt in the past, if she's experienced the rug being pulled out from under her just when she let her guard down, then closeness feels more like a threat than a gift. She's not just scared of being hurt again, she's scared of becoming emotionally exposed to someone she can't control. And so what looks like indifference might actually be fear. What looks like distance might be self-preservation. She may even tell herself that you're the problem, that you're too available, too invested, too good to be true, because it's easier to rationalize pushing you away than it is to sit with the fear that comes from needing someone. So she detaches, she withdraws, she may even say things she doesn't mean, not because she doesn't feel the connection, but because the connection is too strong for her to handle without risking emotional collapse. This kind of behavior confuses people. You give your best, you show up with sincerity, and still she creates distance. But that's the paradox. Your emotional consistency doesn't calm her, it exposes her. It makes her realize that the connection is no longer casual, that you see her, that you care. And in her mind, that opens a door she's not sure she wants to walk through. Because what if it all disappears? What if you leave? What if she gets used to you and then loses you? When she begins to care too much, she feels out of control. And when someone's learned to equate control with safety, losing control, even to love, feels dangerous. So she retreats, not because the love isn't there, but because it is, because it matters too much. She doesn't push you away because she stopped feeling something. She pushes you away because she finally did. There's a reason people flinch when they start to feel something real. It's not because love itself is painful. Love is one of the most transformative forces we experience. It's because real love requires vulnerability. And for someone who's been hurt before, vulnerability feels like a wide open door with no lock. It's not just a matter of liking someone, it's a matter of safety, of survival even. So when she begins to care, really care, her past pain wakes up. It reminds her of the times she let someone in and paid the price, of the trust that was broken, of the words that turned cold, of the warmth that slowly faded into silence. And that memory, whether she talks about it or not, shapes how close she'll allow herself to get to you. You may think you're building something new with her, something honest and clean, but in her mind, the past isn't gone, it's sitting just beneath the surface. Every time you say something kind, she wonders if it's just a setup. Every time you show her consistency, she wonders when it will break. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because someone else already did. And that pain didn't just disappear, it became a warning system, a defense mechanism. And so the closer you get, the more her instincts kick in, not to embrace you, but to protect herself from the possibility of being wounded again. She might not even realize it. It doesn't always come in the form of conscious thought. Sometimes it shows up as irritability, or silence, or a sudden shift in how much she shares with you. She starts to pull away, not because her feelings are fading, but because they're growing. And in her world, growing feelings have never led to safety. They've led to disappointment, to betrayal, to emotional collapse. So instead of letting the connection deepen, she creates distance. She retreats behind emotional walls that took years to build, because that pain taught her that vulnerability doesn't always end in closeness, it sometimes ends in abandonment. So what she's doing isn't about you, even if it feels personal. It's about what her past trained her to believe about love. That it disappears, that it punishes, that it only shows up long enough to leave scars. So now, even when she sees something good in front of her, she struggles to receive it. Because accepting love would mean trusting it, and trusting it would mean risking herself all over again. So if she finds herself willing to be trusted by him again, here's something she has to trust. You might be ready to offer her something real, something steady. But if she's still carrying the echoes of what broke her, she'll find a way to shield herself, even if it means pushing you away. Even if it means losing what she actually wants. Because in her mind, pain you choose is better than pain that catches you off guard. Sometimes the distance she creates isn't meant to end the connection, it's meant to test it. Not in a manipulative, controlling way, but as a defense mechanism she may not even realize she's using. You see, when a woman starts to care deeply, when she begins to feel something genuine, her emotional walls don't just fall, they start to shake. And that shaking feels unsafe. It makes her question everything. Her mind starts spinning with doubt, not necessarily about you, but about the safety of allowing herself to be seen, to be known, to be vulnerable. And so she pulls back, not to break the bond, but to see what happens when she stops holding it together. There's an unspoken question she's asking in that silence. Will you stay if I'm not easy to love right now? It's not something she'll say out loud. In fact, she may not even be fully conscious of it. But when she starts withdrawing emotionally or becoming distant or suddenly not responding the way she used to, what she's really doing is observing, watching, paying attention to how you handle her uncertainty. She's trying to feel out if your presence is conditional. If the attention you gave her when things felt good will disappear the moment she's no longer cheerful, open, or fully available. She's not doing this because she wants to manipulate you. She's doing it because she's terrified that the second she lets her guard down completely, she'll be left holding nothing, that you'll turn out to be like the others who only stayed for the easy version of her. You might think it's a game, that she's just being cold or distant for no reason. But beneath that behavior is a need to feel emotionally safe. And emotional safety isn't something you can create through words alone. It's revealed in moments when someone tests your consistency without giving you a clear map of what they need. It's when they retreat and you don't panic. When they push and you don't push back with frustration. When they question everything and you hold steady instead of walking away. What she's trying to understand, whether consciously or not, is if your presence is rooted in her performance or if it's rooted in something deeper. She wants to know if you see her as a whole person, not just someone who meets your needs. And the only way she can feel that deeply is by testing your ability to remain when she stops performing the role she thinks you fell in love with. And when you stay, not by chasing, not by begging, but by holding your ground with calm self-respect, that's when she starts to see something she hasn't seen before. Stability, presence, emotional maturity. That's when she begins to trust not just the love you offer, but the way you offer it. There's a strange thing that happens when someone finally experiences a connection that feels real, one that isn't shallow, transactional, or fleeting. It should bring peace. It should offer relief. But for someone who's never known safe closeness, it can feel like walking into unknown territory blindfolded. The very thing they longed for becomes the very thing they fear. So instead of embracing it, they push it away. Not because they don't want it, but because they've never had it without it costing them something. Closeness to someone who's been hurt feels like a setup, a trap, a beautiful experience with a painful ending just waiting around the corner. Because they've learned that when things feel good, they don't last. When someone sees them, really sees them, it's only a matter of time before that person walks away. So when you come along, steady, honest, emotionally available, it doesn't feel calming, it feels threatening, not because of what you're doing wrong, but because of what everyone else before you did wrong. She may crave connection, but she's spent most of her life learning how to survive without it. And survival doesn't require closeness, it requires control. The more you care, the more power you give up. And when she's used to managing her world by staying emotionally guarded, falling for you means losing control. Letting go, allowing herself to be seen. And when you've relied on emotional independence to protect yourself for years, surrendering to love doesn't feel freeing, it feels dangerous. That's why she pulls away, why she closes off just when things start to get deeper. Because closeness isn't just about being physically near. It's about emotional nakedness. It's about letting someone see the parts of you you've hidden, even from yourself. And if she's not ready to be that exposed, then her mind will look for ways to create distance. She'll start overthinking, questioning your motives, doubting the connection. Because if she can convince herself it isn't real or that it won't last, then she doesn't have to open that vulnerable part of herself. And this is where most people get confused. They think the sudden coldness means her feelings are fading, that the emotional withdrawal means she's stopped caring. But more often than not, it's the opposite. The closer she feels to you, the more she panics. Not because she doesn't want to love you, but because she's never learned how to feel safe in love. And rather than admit that, rather than risk being seen as fragile or fearful, she protects herself the only way she knows how, by creating distance. So when she pulls away, it's not always rejection, it's resistance. Resistance to the vulnerability she's not sure she knows how to survive. It's easy to take it personally when someone you care about begins to pull away. You start to overanalyze your actions, wondering what you did wrong, what changed, or if you somehow failed to be enough. But in many cases, what feels like rejection on the surface is actually something much more complicated underneath. When she begins to distance herself, when she closes off or becomes cold, you're not always witnessing a judgment of you, witnessing a war within her. One part of her wants to trust you to open up and fully experience the connection, but the other part, wounded, cautious, conditioned by the past, tells her that closeness means risk, and risk means pain. This internal conflict isn't something she chooses consciously. It's a reflex, a survival response learned through experience. Maybe she's been abandoned when she finally let her guard down. Maybe she was betrayed after believing someone's words. Or maybe she grew up in an environment where emotional vulnerability was a weakness rather than a strength. Whatever the source, that emotional blueprint runs deep, and when she starts to feel something real, something that touches the vulnerable parts of her, those wounds come to the surface. Her instinct isn't to lean in, it's to pull back, not because she doesn't feel, but because she feels too much. That's the contradiction. You think you're being pushed away because she doesn't care, but in truth, the depth of her emotion might be exactly what's terrifying her. Loving you would mean surrendering some control. It would mean letting someone else have the power to hurt her. And when her past has taught her that closeness often ends in pain, then distance feels safer, even when it's lonely. So what looks like rejection is often just self-protection. What sounds like silence might be the sound of her trying to quiet the noise in her own mind, fighting the fear that tells her it's all going to fall apart. She's not at war with you. She's at war with everything inside her that tells her she's safe or alone, even when her heart wants connection. This is the kind of emotional battle that leaves her frozen. She might say she needs space, or she might just disappear for a while. And it's tempting to take that as a clear signal that you meant nothing. But often, what you're really seeing is someone who doesn't yet know how to receive the kind of love they've always wanted. It's unfamiliar, it's overwhelming, and in her world, that unfamiliarity triggers fear instead of trust. She's not always walking away from you. Sometimes she's walking away from her own feelings, because facing them would mean facing the pain that came before you. When someone pushes you away, the instinct is usually to pull harder, to prove your value, to fight for closeness. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to react, it's to remain calm, unmoved, grounded in your own sense of worth. Because when you're dealing with someone who's emotionally conflicted, someone whose heart wants connection but whose fear demands distance, what they're watching more than anything is your response to their chaos. And how you handle that moment tells them more about you and the connection than anything else. When she starts to pull away, when her words grow colder or her presence fades, she's not only trying to protect herself, she's also trying to see what happens when she's no longer easy to love. It's a quiet question buried in the behavior. Will you lose yourself now? Will you become reactive? Will you start proving, begging, or chasing me like everyone else did? She might not say it. She might not even fully know she's thinking it. but that's what she's observing. And this is where your emotional discipline speaks louder than any explanation. Your calm becomes the contrast. While everything in her internal world is turbulent, filled with fear, doubt, and old wounds, you don't need to match that energy. You don't need to fix her emotions or rush in to make her feel better. You just need to be steady, grounded, present in a way that shows her you're not dependent on her affection to feel whole, that her withdrawal doesn't collapse you, that you care, but not at the cost of your identity. And the surprising thing is, that response doesn't push her further away. It actually creates safety, because she's used to instability. She's used to emotional spirals, either from herself or from others. But when she meets someone who holds their center even when she's off balance, that stands out. That presence becomes a mirror. She begins to see the difference between someone who needs her attention to feel worthy and someone who already knows who they are. You're not punishing her with silence. You're not walking away to manipulate her. You're simply showing that love doesn't always have to be reactive, that distance doesn't have to be met with desperation. And that kind of emotional strength doesn't fade from memory. It lingers. Even if she doesn't know how to handle it in the moment, even if she stays silent longer than you'd hoped, she remembers how you made her feel, not just loved, but safe. Safe enough to come back when her fear has passed.